welcome to a TLDR boss guide for Gnarlroot. Gnarlroot is the first boss of Amirdrassil and has two alternating phases. First, for healers, Tortured Scream is a hit of raid wide every so often that gives everyone a dot for you to heal. Shadow Flame Cleave is a frontal, so tanks make sure to face him away, and Dreadfire Barrage has 5 hits of magic and physical damage, increasing damage taken with each hit, so pop a defensive and swap on every cast. Controlled Burn makes a few players deal splash damage to anyone nearby and drop shit on the floor, so piss off and drop it against a wall. And Flaming Pestilence is an X of swells from the boss that spawns a bunch of adds, and this happens quite often. Have the off tank pick them up and get some AoE stuns going to stop their casts while you pad the shit out of your meters. On Heroic, the adds spawn dormant and are only activated using Controlled Burn or at the start of Phase 2. Tanks should hold the boss near a wall to make the dormant adds spawn closer together, and whoever gets Controlled Burn needs to hit as many as possible so they don't all spawn at once. At 100 energy, the boss moves to the middle of the room, becomes immune, and spawns a bunch of roots. And on Heroic, he also activates any dormant adds. He also deals ticking raid-wide damage the whole phase, so if your healers are struggling, pop a few CDs. After the roots have spawned on normal, he makes everyone deal splash damage and get a stack of flame shards, so make sure to spread out or stack on the Moonkin thinking he's cool with his new chicken forms. You need to set all the roots on fire by running into the roots with a debuff, which does remove it. And once they're all dead, it stuns the boss and increases his damage taken for about 20 seconds. He also pulses heavy raid-wide damage. This is a great time to pop your CDs, lust it up, and see who has the best single target damage. On Heroic, the only way to get the flame shard debuff is by soaking missiles around the room. Spread out so you don't miss any and burn the roots as fast as possible while everyone else deals with the adds you forgot to clear in the previous phase. Then you go back to phase 1 and repeat it until you kill the boss. Igira is the second boss in Amirdrassil and has two alternating phases. For tanks, the boss hits you and the closest person, so stack together. She also gives her main target a dot with every hit, so swap before you die. Twisting Blades shoot out towards a random target, so don't get hit. And Blistering Spears targets about 4 people, pinning them to the ground, so you need to break them out. Don't stack up or you'll probably all fucking die, but try to stay close together to be nice to classes who can only dream of having Starfall. At 100 energy, she casts Mark for Torment, dealing a large hit of raid-wide damage, knocking everyone away, and spawning 3 weapons around the room. You need to choose a weapon by soaking the circle nearby, and each one gives her a different ability in phase 1. While soaking, you take damage and the circle gets smaller, and once it's gone, the phase ends, so have the whole raid pre-stack on one to soak it straight away. On Heroic, soaking gives you a debuff that increases its damage, so you might have to split the raid and be careful if you soak another one. Or don't, it's your great pass. You also get a bunch of swells under your feet throughout the phase because that still exists in 2023. Choosing the axe gives her Umbral Destruction, a big soak that deals raid-wide damage reduced by the number of people hit, but you can't soak twice, so split the raid to deal with it. Choosing the sword gives her Smashing Viscera, marking a player and jumping on them, then jumping again to someone else. It seems to favor someone far away, so you can try to bait it by having a few people stand behind the raid and the second leap should be back on the tanks. When she lands, she deals raid-wide damage, so move out of the way and healers pop a CD. And on Heroic, it also throws out a bunch of swells to dodge. Lastly, if you choose the knife, she puts a healing absorb on a bunch of players that deal splash damage when it's removed, so have them move out before it gets healed. On Heroic, this also makes them throw out balls for everyone to dodge, so don't get hit. Volcoross is the third boss in Amirdrassil and is a fixed boss with only one phase. Split the raid in 2 as you'll need to move around each side of the platform in groups. For tanks, Cataclysmic Jaws is a massive tank hit for you to prove how hard you are, but his auto attacks give you a stacking dot that increase the damage of it by 50% per stack, so make sure you don't have it if you're soaking the big one or you'll be eating shit. Taunt just before or during the cast to make sure you don't. Scorched Tail Crash is a big shadow of his tail to dodge so don't get squashed, and on Heroic this also throws out lava waves to dodge so don't get hit by either of them. Burning Vertebrae is ticking damage for healers to heal, I guess, but Serpent's Fury is 5 seconds of pulsing raid-wide damage for you to use a cooldown on, and at the end of it a few players get Coiling Flames, dealing damage to anyone nearby. The splash circle reduces over time but the damage increases, eventually jumping to the nearest player when it ends, so make sure you pass it to someone squishy. And Volcanic Disgorge is just swirls to dodge that drop shit on the floor. At 100 energy, the boss casts Flood of the Firelands, 2 massive soaks, so have a group in each and pop a healing CD. They both drop massive pulls that expand over time, and the next soaks appear on either side of it. Make sure you have a group on either side or you'll be a bit fucked. Pop Lust on pull and keep this rotation going until you meet on the other side, but if you haven't killed it by then, you probably never will. The council is made of 3 bosses, each with abilities that counteract each other. Urktos needs to be tanked, but Pip and Airwind don't, so tanks enjoy dragging the bear around as Airwind jumps away from the raid to be annoying as fuck, and Pip just stays near the middle. They need to die together, otherwise they'll heal, and your raid leader will break his keyboard. And Urktos has more health than the others to keep damage even. Poisonous Javelin makes a few players deal splash damage and gives them a poison dot that reduces movement speed, so remove it if you can, or leave it on your paladins and DKs because it's funny. Noxious Blossom spawns a bunch of poison flowers, so don't stand near them, and at full energy, Airwind casts Constricting Thicket, pulling everyone everyone towards her while dealing ticking damage with a stacking movement speed debuff. Interrupt it with barreling charge, and if you miss, she throws spears at everyone and you'll probably all fucking die. Barreling charge rushes the tank after a few seconds, dealing massive raid-wide damage when it lands, reduced by hitting people, so throw a few in front of him. Tanks hold Urkdos near Erwin to stop her with a charge as soon as possible. On Heroic, you get a debuff when you soak, so rotate who's getting flattened. Agonizing Claws has a massive tank hit with a damage increase, so swap on every cast. And on Heroic, it's a frontal instead, so face the boss away unless you hate your melee. At 100 energy, Urkdos casts Blind Rage, dealing ramping raid-wide damage that needs to be stopped using Polymorph Bomb. If you don't, he goes nuts and you'll probably all fucking die. Polymorph Bomb turns a few players into ducks because it was one of Dragonflight's main marketing points. Eat some poison flowers to increase space and be able to cast Preen, but don't clear them all. Preen removes the polymorph, but it also interrupts Urkdos' rage, so make sure someone hits him. On Heroic, this also polymorphs anyone nearby, so at least pretend you aren't trying to turn the tanks into ducks. Emerald Winds is just a bit of raid-wide with a pushback, and at 100 energy, Pip casts Song of the Dragon, giving everyone a damage shield that can only be broken by standing in the poison flowers. If you don't remove it in time, you dance until you die. Remember to listen to your weak auras, kids. Larodar is available after Volcoross and has 2 phases with an intermission. There's expanding lava on the floor the whole fight, but you can clear it using the seed in the middle. Kill the trees that spawn, then heal them up to make them friendly, and once the seed has power, you can click on it to spray seed juice on the lava. You get 3 uses per wave, and on Heroic you get a debuff, so it's only 1 per person, so rotate your seed sprayers. Group up the trees, interrupt their casts, and nuke them down. He also spawns roots that chase players and try to root them, so don't get caught. Nuke it down, then heal it up again to turn it into a helpful bush for later. On Heroic, you need to hit it with the seed juice to target it, so make sure you spray it first. For tanks, Furious Charge deals a ton of damage reduced by distance, so run away to survive. You get stacks of a damage taken increase, so swap on every cast, and melee don't stand in the charge unless you want to be roadkill. And on Heroic, the impact also deals a massive hit of raid-wide, so drop a healer CD. Blazing Thorns are a bunch of swirls, so don't stand in them. They form fire orbs that buff the boss if they reach him, so go soak the tasty crit buff and watch your crit classes fight to soak them first. At 100 energy, he casts Raging Inferno, pulsing lethal raid-wide damage, so stand in the helpful bush to survive. And healers get ticking raid-wide the whole phase that increases after each cast. After 3 Raging Infernos, he starts the intermission, dealing raid-wide damage while giving you all the suck, so pop a roar and run away. In phase 2, you can't clear the shit on the floor anymore, so space will only get smaller. Flame Whirl spawns a few tornadoes, so don't get hit. Falling Embers are a few soaks, so go soak them, and if you miss, you probably all fucking die. Flashfire puts a big healing absorb on a few players and makes them deal splash damage, so move out of the group and focus some healing on them. If you don't get it off, it stuns them, but this can be dispelled, so you get to decide if you want to brick their pass. He spawns more trees to pad your Moonkin meters, so just grip them in and cleave them down. On Heroic, they also drop shit on the floor, so grip them in quick to keep your precious floor space. For tanks, he now casts Smolderon Backdraft, a frontal of tank damage that gives you 100% healing reduction with a dot, so swap on every cast. You leech health from anyone nearby, so hug the melee to keep yourself alive and don't kill any of your health batteries. And for healers, there's ramping raid-wide damage as a soft enrage, so save some CDs for the end of the fight. Nymue is available after the Council of Dreams and has 2 alternating phases. During the main phase, have range spread out and everyone avoid the glowing matrix lines on the floor. If you cross one, you get a stack of a dot, so don't cross if you don't need to. For healers, Viridian Rain is a heavy dot on a few people. Impending Loom sends out lasers from the boss that move across the floor and stun you, so don't get hit. Surging Growth spawns flowers that deal raid-wide ticking damage, so just like gnomes, get rid of them by standing on top of them. For tanks, Threaded Blast is a heavy hit cast fairly often, so make sure you're prepared. And Weaver's Burden puts the boss's seed in you, dealing splash damage to anyone nearby and dropping green under your feet after it ends. The green makes you a bit faster and stops you getting the dot from crossing the matrix lines, so you're safe to run back. On Heroic, this also applies to a few random players, and when it ends, it makes you all drop a flower that knocks you away, so drop it away from the raid and don't touch it. It also gives the tank a damage taken increase, so swap on every cast. At 100 energy, the boss starts phase 2, but don't stand too close during the phase change or you'll probably fucking die. She spawns a warden on either side of the room, so you'll need to split the raid to kill them, but let the tank hit it first or you might get clapped. While the ads are alive, the boss is immune and deals ramping raid-wide damage, so the quicker you kill them, the happier your healers will be. Tanks, don't let them cross the matrix lines on the floor or you'll probably wipe the raid. Lumbering Slam is a frontal on a random player, so don't get hit. On Heroic, this also spawns some Surging Growth patches to soak, so make sure you soak them. And Radial Flourish is just swirls on the ground in a flower pattern, so don't get hit. Once both wardens are dead, the matrix lines disappear and the boss starts channeling heavy raid-wide damage for 10 seconds, so make sure to drop some CDs. At the end of the channel, the ground lines reappear in a different pattern and then it's rinse and repeat until you kill the boss. Smolderon is available after clearing both other wings and has 2 alternating phases. During phase 1, hold the boss near the edge of the platform and have the raid loosely stacked nearby. For tanks, Mark of Damnation is a hit of tank damage with massive split damage, so help soak to keep your tank alive. Soakers get a healing absorb and when it's removed, they drop a swirl, so either stack up and heal them evenly with a CD, or heal them one by one and dodge the swirls when they appear. And you can't soak more than once per phase or you'll probably fucking die. On Heroic, the tank also deals fall off damage, so piss off to the other side. Or if you're a blood DK, brick the pull and solo the boss for 10 minutes while everyone everyone waits for you to die. Overheated makes about half the raid pulse splash damage for a bit, so spread out. On Heroic, they also shoot fire out at the end, so don't get hit. This usually happens alongside the tank mechanic, so whoever doesn't have Overheated should be soaking. Lava geysers are swirls that drop permanent pools near people, so the platform will get smaller over time, and this is why you're loosely stacked. And for healers, blistering heat is just ticking damage for the whole fight. At 100 energy, the boss moves to the middle of the room, knocks everyone away, and anyone who had the tank mark spits out fireballs. Soak them to get a damage and healing buff and stop them buffing the boss, and to make whoever didn't drop off the meters. Extra fireballs do stack, but they don't extend the duration, so don't save any, just grab them all and start blasting. For healers, the ticking damage gets much faster, so drop a few CDs or you'll struggle to keep up. Dodge the massive rings of fire and do as much damage as you can until you restart phase 1, and a lock gate is pretty handy here. If he phases 4 times, he straight up kills everyone, so this is a DPS race against both time and space. Tindral has 3 phases with 2 dragon riding intermissions. His main abilities stay the same throughout the fight, but each phase has a few extra. And don't stand near the edge of the platforms or he'll blast the shit out of you. For tanks, blazing mushrooms spawn 3 soaks with a damage taken increase, so take turns soaking. On Heroic, if you miss any, it'll wipe the raid. And his melee hits give you a stacking dot, so swap before you die. Fiery Growth is a dispellable dot on a few players that drop shit on the ground, so move out before dispelling. Falling Star makes a few people deal splash damage, followed by a bunch of swells to dodge, so move out and don't get hit. Mass Entangle makes everyone deal splash damage and spawn roots, dealing ticking damage while they're alive. Spawn them as close together as you can and watch your Moonkin spam the shit out of Starfall. This often lines up with Falling Star, so kill the roots as soon as you can or give freedom to anyone who needs to move out. During phase 1, he turns into a Moonkin, dealing raid-wide damage every few seconds. He also casts Fire Beam, a large swirl that spawns a ring of beams moving outwards so don't get hit. On Heroic, it now spawns 2 swirls that both spawn 2 sets of beams, so run around like a headless Moonkin to dodge them all. During phase 2, he now becomes a Treant instead of a Moonkin. For healers, he puts a Healing Absorb on random players every so often, and he also casts Tranquility of Fire, spawning seeds all over the place while dealing channeled raid-wide damage, so this is another healer CD moment. Soak the seeds or they turn into trees that deal even more raid-wide, so if too many spawn, you'll probably all fucking die. On Heroic, when you soak a seed, you get a damage taken increase, so everyone help out to soak them as quickly as possible. He phases at 66 and 40%, dealing a hit of raid-wide with a pushback and spawns a load of feathers. Dodge them, then pick them up to enable dragon riding while he fucks off to another platform. You need to follow him while dodging the fire and collecting green orbs for a stacking raid-wide buff. Or if you're shit at dragon riding, just fly to the platform and pretend you got some instead. When he gets to the next platform, he starts casting Supernova, so break his damage shield before it goes off and you all fucking die. It also has channeled raid wide while casting, so pop a healer CD if you need it. On Heroic, the channeled raid wide is quite high and the shield is even bigger, so save some CDs to break it and keep the raid alive. In phase 3, there's no new mechanics, but he uses abilities from both forms instead of just one, so it'll be a massive shit show to deal with everything. Kill him before you fill the room and he starts casting his final Supernova to kill you all. Fyrakk is the final boss and has 3 phases with an intermission. During phase 1, he spawns rows of fire patches that wipe the raid if they reach the roots, so face him before they do. For tanks, Fyrakk's bite is a tank hit that shoots a fireball, so face it away. It also makes you take damage each time he attacks, so even when you're not tanking, you're still in danger. Firestorm makes a few players drop fire, so put it with the other fire, but don't stand in the fire or it bounces out. Dream Rend makes a rift that sucks you in while dealing raid-wide fall-off damage, so pop a roar and run away. On Heroic, a few players get blaze and shoot out beams, so move out and watch where your line is going. At 70%, he starts the intermission, knocking everyone up with a hit of raid wide. You need to break his damage shield in 30 seconds or you'll all fucking die, and don't stand in front of his fire breath. Orbs travel to the boss that you need to soak, or they'll deal a shitload of damage, so spread the raid around him and play some goalkeeper. Break the shield to start phase 2, and for tanks, the mechanics are the same as phase 1. In phase 2, you need to heal up the friendly adds that walk towards the tree, giving them a shield when fully topped. The tree health ticks down, healed by the adds reaching it, and no prizes for what happens if it drops to 0. Greater Firestorm spawns swirls and makes 2 players drop meteors that spawn Colossus adds. Pick them up and kill them ASAP, as if they reach 100 energy, they explode. And on Heroic, you still get blaze lines, so watch where you're putting them. At 100 boss energy, he does an overhead breath and spawns screaming soul adds that you need to kill. If the friendly spirits get too close, they turn into screaming souls too, so kill any in their way first. The souls can be interrupted, CC'd, and gripped, so kill them ASAP. After he reaches 100 energy for a 3rd time, he starts phase 3, dealing another hit of raid wide and knocking you up again. In phase 3, you now have seeds that need to be picked up and protected. If you get hit holding a seed, you lose it and take raid wide damage, so if you get targeted, drop it using the extra action button. When he casts Apocalypse Roar, the button changes to drop a shield instead to survive the lethal raid-wide damage, and you should only need 1 shield per cast. Don't use all your seeds on the first roar or you'll wipe on the next one. On Heroic, you still get blaze lines, so be careful dropping all the beams to not hit anyone or the seeds. Eternal Firestorm makes a few people drop meteors that spawn tornadoes, so move out and don't get hit. Shadowflame Breath is a frontal on a random player, so don't stand in it. And for tanks, Infernal Maw is massive tank damage with a stacking dot, so be prepared and swap to survive. Then enjoy the race to kill the boss before you run out of seeds. And that's it for Fyrakk, the final boss of Dragonflight. Congrats on your kill. We won't be getting another raids here for a minimum of 9 months, so I can take a break. I'll probably make stuff on the War Within in the meantime. Like and subscribe if you found these guides useful. I'll catch you in the next one.